There's 5 of these in Australia. Cash price 1.5 million.
1.5 million?
For that unit, yeah.
Wow.
Manufacturing in Australia is not going to be, make Australia or make America great again. It's not going to be people putting nuts on bolts. It's going to be creative people sitting at desks. So if you look at the economic modelling, that's the way that we're going to do it. So it's about having creative people. So it's about running good intern programs, good educational programs, and starting to re-educate the employment market around what they need to do. And then so having good software like something like Onshape, who can sort of de-skill, if you like, to a lower level of competency, the design process. And it could be computer programming of the machines and getting the systems to run. Not putting, so Trump thinks it's going to be, nuts on bolts, but actually if you look at the modelling and you look at the forecasting, it's actually around more interns, more graduates doing more creative work and allowing the robots to do the repetitive work and the humans to do the creative work. If that makes sense, because you can't program that creativity into AI. So that's something that we're exploring. Then when you start looking at our business and what we're trying to do commercially, margins are always obviously a challenge. It's hard for us to make little shop stuff. We started as a little workshop, making brush turkey nests and sculptures and lovely fire pits and things like that. But the reality of our business is media is playing a role. So the Westfield screens that you see behind Adam there is the integration in terms of revenue, is that we can make the products almost for free if we can back at them with media revenue in the back end. So that's the marketing, social media, commercial aspect to this business that we're starting. So our 5-year journey will probably see us having a line item on our P&L of advertising revenue. So we're going to go over these stairs. We're going to go straight through the factory. I'm going to walk quite quickly. I apologise for that, but I'll go and park myself where we're going to stand. So just sort of make your way at a half decent pace through to that, and I'll get us out of the way, and then I'll show you the lasers and the bending and everything that's going on, and then we're going to move from the south end of the factory through to the north. Okay. So we can load all these in overnight, average about 12 tonne of material. The sheet loader will actually load the laser, which is the box. If you want to come across, you can see the box here. So the sheet loader will load it and then take the cut material back out and put it in the stack. And then the guys have got to pull it all apart on the bench, shake out the parts. But we can let that run overnight. So the whole goal behind this piece of equipment was to be able to set it up, program it, let it go, and then the day shift can come in and basically pull the parts. We'll walk back around into the pressing area so you can see all the parts being pressed. But yeah, as you sort of leave, come and have a look around the corner. A Japanese laser, fantastic piece of equipment till it gave us a headache yesterday. It was out of action all day yesterday. There's 5 of these in Australia. Cash price 1.5 million.
1.5 million?
For that unit, yeah.
Wow.
Around about 50% of the sheet steel coming out of the Kurnell mill over at Cronulla. So this steel is made in Sydney, at the foundry or at the mill, and then it's coming in. So at the moment we're their biggest customer. So we've over the years we've had pushback from BHP and Coils Australia and those sorts of guys, Southern Steel. We're buying our steel cheaper than anybody else in the country. So if you need a sheet of material, come here and get it. Yeah. So stainless has been quite popular. Aluminium's been quite popular. Stainless steel, not no stain steel. So we get lots of complaints about tea staining, things like that. But it's stainless steel. and all the different grades, and we've had lots of challenges over the years with different grades of material.
We don't stock any material. Everything that we have here is basically to order. So about 2 days to get material in. So we're getting delivery every day. The reason this is on the ground is because we actually don't have enough capacity to put on shelves anymore. It's too heavy. So we're literally buying that much material.
Yeah.
It uses dies to basically punch through the material. So this machine can basically put perforations in something very fast, where these are a lot slower for like doing lots of little holes. The other thing too is we can do tapping here, we can deform the material, we can roll ribs, so we can actually potentially make something a lot stronger with a lighter material on this machine, where these machines traditionally you just cut straight through.
You can do laser cut material, but bend and punch it at the same time. Like
It has
so
limitations. You
punch and crease.
yeah,
punching
Yeah.
so that sort of thing where you cut and fold that bit back
Yeah.
so it gets
Well, the folding part happens in the next stage, but this one can deform.
Like a cupboard door that needs a crease in it. Yeah. To stiffen it up. Yeah.
You can put a roll. We've got examples at the end factory.
This is the German laser, which is the original laser, how the business started. Back in the day, 5 years ago, $1 million just for that box. So like a German car versus a Japanese car, you sort of get more volume for your money now. But if you look through the two black windows, you will see the laser cutting as it starts its process. Optic fiber laser, nitrogen cooled. Outside the back door, when you're leaving, you can see we've got big nitrogen tank just behind this brick wall, but it's got to be hand loaded. It's a manual loading process versus automated loading. Into Japanese equipment, so the original press on the right hand side. A couple of things to watch. Watch the red LED light strip on the machine. It's telling the operator where to put the part. So it's been pre-programmed in. You can see the computer on the side will show the part, and then the LED strip, depending on the bends they're doing, may or may not move with the lights coming on and off. So they can set the press up to do, say, 20 folds, for example, with 20 tools, and they just keep moving the part as they go through the machine, and the LEDs will tell the operator where to put the part. So in terms of what I was saying about design, we can use this stuff to try and access a less skilled labour force. It's not necessarily about cost, it's about volume of staff and actually getting access to people. One of the advantages of being here on the Northern Beaches is we've got more access to a casual labour force than say, oh, let's go and build a factory in Orange or Bathurst. No one out there wants to work. We've got second and third generation unemployment. Here we can access the backpacker market and obviously lots of locals as well. But we've got friends with factories that took the grants and moved to Orange. They can't get their factories to operate. They can't get staff, can't get the numbers that they need to expand and scale. So it's $750,000 a year to rent this shed, but it's worth it because we can get people.
I was going to say also too, all our programming is done like offline, so up in the office. So nothing ever makes it to here if it's not manufacturable. So we can do the folding on the computer and it will tell us that it can't be made. So then we can basically very quickly go back to the client and say, sorry, the part you should have been actually manufactured. And that's a big education piece that we take our clients through, to educate them what is manufacturable and what is the best way to make something, so that we can basically pick up the volume and also keep the price low.
So how many units do you need to make to set up a process to do a fold and this and this and get it sort of behind? It must be a sweet spot of how many components you need to make it worth a while.
We do it on numbers. So we do it on numbers. What we try to do is $40,000 per section per day. So we do it on a money value. So we can do one, but it's got to be 40 grand. If it takes a day to do one part, it's 40 grand for the part. So that's the way to go. If we're cutting out one part, 40 grand. If we're folding one part, 40 grand. If we're folding 40,000 parts, divided by $40,000. So that's where at the moment with the current setup, that's what we're trying to do. Just $40,000 per day through each section. So all of the processes, so the fold, the labour time, that kind of stuff is all like with the hourly rate, the folds per hour, the rivets per minute, that kind of stuff, to try to get the job out on target, on time, budget, quality. So that's sort of
So you really do want a lot more repetitive jobs rather than one
Within reason, yeah. It's just become 6 years of trial and error. So Dane has actually figured out how to get a router to drill a hole. So the team can come in, they'll bend all these on a jig behind you, set them all up, put it in the router, and the router cuts all the holes. So we went from, I think it was 3 minutes per hole, down to 30 holes per minute. So he sits there and you wonder what's going on in his head. He's hopeless with a P&L and a balance sheet, but get him to come down here and talk to one of these pieces of equipment and he can actually, challenge it. The manufacturer is like, what are you doing to the equipment? Because it's reporting back its pace and its intensity. Same with the German laser down the back, getting that to run at full capacity. That machine has done more hours, more cutting than any of its counterparts in the world. And Trump reached out to us and said, what are you doing in terms of nesting and programming? Same with this router. So using a router bit to drill a hole. So all the holes end up in exactly the same spot. Instead of someone sitting there with a drill press, actually drilling the holes. So it was a case of cutting out the template, then working out the design, and then programming the machine to drill the holes, all part of that process. But then we got speed. That's how we beat China. In China, someone will be sitting there with a drill press, the holes won't be in the right place, and then we'll get the complaints that we've got to make stuff quickly because what got delivered doesn't work. So the client's brief was the units are running out. So the units are running out of material. Most of the hand sanitizer units you see take 500 mils and they're just running out too quickly, having to employ a whole nother person per day, 24 hours in a supermarket to just refill hand sanitizer units. So the cost saving as this whole pandemic evolves is to actually get more volume into the unit. So we've actually spec'd and designed a pump. I'll take you around the other side. We'll have a look at the pump unit. So it's actually to get the volume in. So we're supplying the container, they're supplying the sanitizer. They're going to refill these drums from a bulk drum. Someone can run around the store and put the containers in. In some instances, a spare, some not, in the two shelves, but it's all about volume now for these guys. And the second thing was a lot of the units making a splash, leaking on the floor or splashing. So this has got a collection tray, and obviously you put your hand into the unit. So it was people pulling their hand out too quickly and getting splashed, creating a slip hazard on the floor. So it's about volume and obviously about containing any mess, this particular brief. And I think these units are running at about $515 a unit. Designed here, every single component. So we've just sourced the pumps. So everything's coming from a different place. So a little bit better than the other units, which was just, stick the head on top. These are basically all Dane's design. The reason why they're being assembled on a pallet, Dane's got a very strong view about accountability and holding an individual person accountable for finishing a whole unit. We have lots of debates about whether we set up a production line, whether there's different people at different phases. His view is about accountability, making sure a unit is started and finished, then start another unit and finish it. Don't stop until it's finished. Because we invoice when those things go out that roller door. So it's about getting complete units onto a pallet, and that's the whole goal here. So that's why they're working around a pallet in place of maybe a conveyor belt, if that makes sense. It's a heated debate every day about how we do that, how we make it faster. We made 200 of these yesterday. We're making our own packaging. So just outside the door there, we're screwing pallets together. So those are the units laying down on the pallets and then being loaded on the what's called a mezzanine truck. So a mezzanine truck is cheaper than say a B-double or a semi-trailer. So we're actually saving a huge amount of money on freight. Big debate yesterday about truck movements. They were sending in a B-double and it would have meant that there's just pallets flat on the floor of the B-double. But we said, no, hang on a minute, let's rethink this. And so we saved 50% on freight yesterday by going to a mezzanine truck. And it was actually driven by the fact that they wanted 218 units a day. We could only do 200 units a day. And we said, well, give us a different truck, give us that truck. And they went, hang on a minute, we're going to save money on freight. So we slowed down production. We can achieve the number over 2 days. We can't achieve it over 1 day. And they're saving 50% on freight. So like over the moon. So the Dane's like, how do I make this work? I'll just make the bracket, screw the pallets together, and there you go, that's what's outside. So they load the pallets. So we make these, they're disposable, it's mild steel in the recycling. So, you know, it's about constantly dealing with those challenges. Pallets are a big issue for us at the moment. The newish looking pallets up in the racking are $8 each. A CHEP pallet is 60 cents per day. So you've got to be really careful about CHEP pallets hanging around for too long, because all of a sudden you get this bill because they haven't audited you and you have a pile of CHEP pallets in the corner. So we're right in this debate about whether we do CHEP pallets or not. But because of the pandemic, inbound pallets, second-hand pallets, have basically stopped. So that's one of our raw materials, is a second-hand pallet from China. You know, anything from $8 to $3 a pallet. But that's all part of this. You know, we've got a price in packaging. You know, particularly like the facade jobs. If we've got to build custom jigs for freight, particularly to Perth, because you have to remember, like, the thing's got to sit on the truck for 50 hours across the, you know, across Australia. So that's one of our biggest things, and that's one of the constant debates with our team here, is being mindful of what's happening on the truck to the amazing thing that we've just built. Because one of those units can turn very pear-shaped in transport. So that's something to be really thinking about, as you guys always do when you're thinking about I-beams and houses and all that sort of stuff. Well, you don't think about it, but people are thinking about it. You know, it's constructability and you know, the construction methodology is something we're thinking about, and that's, you know, what sets us apart. No one's ever suggested this before. So we've like, yeah, we can fill your truck all the way up to the ceiling. Just give us a little bit more money and we'll save you on freight.
Where are those pumps coming from?
I think they're coming from China. Well, they came, I think we had to fly them in. There's just stuff that's not made in Australia, unfortunately. Vietnam or China, we've got one of the designers is Vietnamese, and then obviously we're doing a lot of procurement, but we're trying to minimise, like, it's like, yeah, that's where it is, but at all costs we're trying to avoid it.
But do you think it will get to the stage where you could make things like that cost effectively here?
Unfortunately, no. Unfortunately, it's just the microelectronics. If we were going to do it, we would have to have motivated TAFE students doing electrical engineering, and then entrepreneurs building little labs, and then eventually factories and warehouses, and then the demand for it in our community, and that's just not there. Like, I can't see it being there. I think, unfortunately, what's going to happen is that we'll have globalization. So rather than this sort of we'll do everything, one-stop shop in our own country kind of concept, to actually back to specialisation. Like 30 years ago, the Italians were the bricklayers, and you know, those kinds of cultures, you know, the Greeks were the plasterers, those kind of cultural trades. I think that's where we're going to go. But the emerging economies will always use the labour advantage for this kind of high repetition work, whereas the first world countries will be more creative. So, you know, like Apple, designed in California, made in China. I think that's where we will go as a country, into the creative design, intelligent side of things. Because the other part is Chinese people don't want to make this stuff. They want to they don't want to be sitting in, you know, in dirty factories making stuff. They want to be, growth in their quality of life and all those sorts of things. So even when you talk about people here in Australia, well, I don't want to be doing this. So that's at a macro level, that's my opinion anyway. Just watching people. These guys are all like transient between uni or backpacking or travelling or that sort of stuff. I just need a little bit of money to get me to my next stepping stone across the pond, you know?
But there's always going to be that source.
Oh, 100%, 100%, yeah, 100%.
Who need this role.
Yeah. And I'm going to stand on a soapbox for 2 minutes. If we want to do that as a country, we need to get rid of company tax. Because that laser, for $1.5 million, we paid 30% tax on that, because we paid cash for it. It's on our balance sheet now, and the government said, we'll borrow the $400,000 from you, $500,000, we'll borrow that from you while you depreciate your piece of equipment. We're going to give it back to you each year. If you want to have manufacturing in this country, you have to get rid of company tax, or take the tax away on the purchase of assets. because you just can't do it. So then we say, okay, well, we can finance it, we can do a chattel mortgage, but that 30% tax still gets charged somewhere in the system. That is what's handicapping this country. It's very simple, doesn't add any value to anybody because it's just a temporary loan. Because like you're the ATO and I go, here's your 500,000, and as I depreciate my piece of equipment, you give me a credit each year. It's one simple change. They just go borrow the money somewhere else.
How about payroll tax?
Well, the soapbox is only this high, not this high.
That is great.
Thanks, Tim. No worries at all. Thank you. Thanks, Adam.
I've got a few. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, mate.
That was awesome.
Very welcome. Very welcome. Yeah, hit us with any questions anytime.
Lovely.
No worries at all. No worries at all.